ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our next lesson. And this is a very critical lesson in our graphing of linear equations, Unit 13. And this is lesson 13.4, page 592 in your big ideas, where we're going to identify and apply what we learned to find slope and a y-intercept. And then we're going to graph equations in this form, which we call slope-intercept form. Ladies and gentlemen, our essential question: how can you describe the graph of the equation y equals mx plus b? So, I know that from the notes from page 592, they were in a different order than what we're going to be going in. We're going to be talking about slope-intercept form first, and that is that underneath the notes on intercepts. We will get to intercepts in our second video, but right now we're going to concentrate on the key idea from the top of page 592, and we're going to concentrate on the slope-intercept form. And it said that a linear equation in the form of y equals mx plus b is in slope-intercept form, where the slope of the line is m and the y-intercept of the line is b. Okay, so what does that really mean? Well, it means that if I have this equation that's in the form of y equals mx plus b, that m, and we've learned m is the slope of that line. How far it rises, how far it runs. It either goes up and is positive, or it goes down and it's negative, and we always run to the right. So our slope of the line is m. It's always the coefficient of x, or our independent variable. We could use any letter to represent our independent variable. We just happen to use x and call that the normal one. But we could use any letter in any real life situation. And then we have b. B is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where that line intercepts, where it crosses, where it intersects the y-axis, the vertical axis. What is that point? And that point B is always going to be, no pun intended, but B is always going to be point 0b. Whatever number that is on the y-axis, okay? So let's talk about this a little second. We have slope, and we have a lot of definitions for slope that we've learned. We've learned it's the ratio of the rise to the run, the change in y or the change in x, the vertical change, the horizontal change, the constant rate of change. And in our last lesson, we learned it was the constant of proportionality. All those things are slope. And so if we look at this graph of this line, we can calculate the slope. And the slope, the rise to the run, starting at this point on the left at -2, -4, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up. And so our slope is going to be a rise of 6. And then we're going to do the run, and the run goes 1, 2, 3, 4 over. So we have 6 over 4. We can simplify that to 3 over 2. And what does that really mean? It means that if I start at point -2, 4 again, I can go up 1, 2, 3 and over 1, 2, and I am right on that line. And I can go up 1, 2, 3 and over 1, 2 again, and I am at point 2, 2. So the slope of this line is 3, 2. And then we have the intercept, the y-intercept, where the line crosses or intercepts the y-axis. And as we look at this line, where is that? Where does it intersect the y-axis? Well, we're looking at this point right here. And that is at point 0, -1. Okay, so 0, -1 is where the y-intercept b is. And remember, the b is always in the position of y. So now we know that the intercept, the y-intercept, b is equal to -1. Now that we have that, we can actually take our equation, y equals mx plus b, and we can substitute that information in. And we can say that our equation is y equals, and we put in our slope, 3/2, x plus, or actually minus, and you're going to ask me in a second, why minus? But when up here it says plus b, well, remember, same change. Remember our integer rules? We can rewrite this as y equals 3/2 x plus a -1. But that's little kind of we don't really write things that way. So we can change it back to subtracting and know that that intercept is at -1. And of course, reminding ourselves that our independent variable x, always our input and our output is y. It is our dependent variable. And again, if we have a real life situation, or if we wanted to, we could change those variables around and put in any variable we want for the independent and any variable for the dependent and still put it in this form, knowing that the independent variable has a coefficient of the slope m. All right? So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to now use what we just learned about slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, and we are going to find and identify the slope and the y-intercept of the graph of this linear equation. Now, we're not actually going to graph it right now. We're going to graph it later. But we're just looking at this equation, and we're deciding, is this equation written in y equals mx plus b form? Because if it is, we can identify both the slope and the intercept. And when we look at this y equals 2x plus 4, yes, it is in slope-intercept form. So, what is in the slope position? What is the coefficient of our independent variable x? And that would be 2. So our slope of this equation is 2. That means the slope of that line is 2, which means that that line is rising 2 and running 1 to get from a point on the left to a point on the right as the line passes through. Make sense? Okay. And then the intercept. Where, pay tell, is this graph crossing the y-axis? And that is what is in the b position. And of course, b is going to be positive 4. So this line has a rise of 2, a run of 1. It crosses the y-axis at 4. Let's go to our next example. Y equals 1/3 x plus 2. Is that in slope-intercept form? Yes, it is in the form of y equals mx plus b. And so we take a look. What is our slope? Our slope is the coefficient. And so our slope is 1/3. What does that mean? It means it's rising 1 and running 3 between the 2 points. And what is our intercept? Where does this line that would be graphed using this equation cross the y-axis? Well, yes, that is correct. It is at 2. It crosses at 0, 2 to be an ordered pair. And our next example, y equals -3/5 x plus 5. Is this in slope-intercept form? And yes, it is. It is in slope-intercept form. And our slope is right here, -3/5. And what does that mean? That means this line is a negative line. It is decreasing. It's going down 3 with a run of 5 between the 2 points. And where does it cross the y-axis? That's right. Our y-intercept is at positive 5. Our next example, y equals x minus 3. Is that in slope-intercept form? Wow, do we see a coefficient? Do we see a coefficient of x? Y equals mx plus b. Do we see a coefficient right here? That's right, we do. Well, technically we do. If you don't see it, what is it? That's right, it's 1. Just like if you don't see the run, it's equal to 1. Right here, our slope is 1 because the coefficient of m is 1. And what does that mean? That means this line is rising by 1 and running 1 between every point. All right? And then where does it cross the y-axis? That's right, our intercept is -3. Right here, our intercept is -3. We have 2 more before we're done with this and go on to our quick write. Number 5, y equals -x minus 1. Is this in slope-intercept form? And yes, it is. Y equals mx plus b. And so what is our slope? What is our coefficient, our independent variable? That's right. Our slope is -1, meaning this one goes down 1 and runs 1 between every 2 points. All right? And then we have the intercept. The intercept where it crosses the y-axis is at -1. Moving right along to our last example, y equals -x over 4 minus 7. Whoa. Is this one in slope-intercept form? So far, they've all been in slope-intercept form. Is this one in plus B. Is this one in slope-intercept form? And the answer to that question is yes, it is. And so our slope looks a little different this time. Our slope is negative 1/4. Remember, negative x over 4 can be written as negative 1/4 x. So there is a 1 next to that x. There's always a 1 next to a variable that doesn't have any other number. So our slope is equal to negative 1/4. And what does that mean? That means that line is falling 1 and running 4 between 2 points. And where is the intercept? Where does it cross the y-axis? That is correct, -7. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. Let's go on to our first quick write. Quick write number 1, parts A and B, where we have 2 equations that you need to identify the slope and the y-intercept. So just tell me, what is the slope and what is the intercept for each one of these equations? Ladies and gentlemen, take a quick break. I'll be back for video 2 of 3. Yes, we have 3, but they're not very long tonight. Thank you.